I say with a heavy heart that the MCU is pretty much dead to me. Please hold your applause for that very controversial opinion, I'll get into it. In my previous video I said that Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and Deadpool 3 are the only two projects of Phase 5 that I have any interest in, and I was also curious to see how Secret Invasion plays out. And while Guardians managed to send a jolt of happiness through my depressed heart, the more I see about Secret Invasion, the more I want to stick my head in a meat slicer. And judging by everything that's been revealed so far, even Deadpool 3 can't seem to escape the wretched writing that has plagued the Multiverse saga. I think part of the problem is that now everything has to be some interconnected story, where each new project needs to be propped up by what came before it, tell its own story, and somehow prop up future stories as well, limiting the potential of some of the story aspects. It's less about creating a fulfilling writing experience and more about just hitting a quota. That, and the fact that Marvel Studios has been willing to allow any and all dogshit writing to infest our screens as long as the writers and showrunners say how great they are, doesn't help either.
You've got to do better, Senator.
One of the aspects that I enjoyed about the early MCU is that it created a variety of movies from different genres before having the different characters come together and play alongside each other and, emphasize their different similarities and differences. And this includes The Incredible Hulk, a film that most people forget is even supposed to be part of the MCU, which is no surprise considering that it's only been referenced in a very brief scene in Iron Man 2 and then She-Hulk, which came out 14 years later. It's also very unique in the MCU, as while the action thriller aspect of the movie would be apparent in later MCU films such as The Winter Soldier and Black Widow, it's undoubtedly the only movie in the MCU that I would view as part of the dark, gritty monster movie genre. And it's kind of why I love this film. A lot of the time when the main antagonist is just like the main character but evil, I usually zone out. There's no challenge to it most of the time, they just weightlessly throw each other around until the hero wins or something else happens to take the villain out of the fight. But with monster movies, seeing two beasts try to destroy each other on screen and just destroy everything around them, with punch and kicks that feel meaty and weighty, it's just so cool to me. Which is a shame that the Hulk is just so disinteresting to some people. I think one of the main reasons is that this film is forgotten about because the main actors changed between films, which created a dissociation between it and the rest of the MCU. Also, Disney doesn't own the rights to creating Hulk solo films, Universal does, so Disney hasn't really been able to have this film on the streaming service and promote it alongside other films on Disney+. But anyways, when I saw that they added The Incredible Hulk to Disney Plus recently, I had to do a rewatch. So without further ado, let's look at The Incredible Hulk. And I'll give you some reasons why I personally feel that this movie has a lot more hate than it deserves, and it needs a lot more love than what it currently has. But first, if you're one of the people who forgot that this was supposed to be part of the MCU, or you just haven't seen it in a while, let's have a quick recap. So the film focuses on Bruce, who, after becoming the Hulk, flees to Brazil and stays there for several years until an accident occurs and the US government locate him, forcing him to flee. As Bruce tries to make his way to a contract in the US that might cure his condition, General Ross starts trying to make a super soldier who can take Bruce down in the form of Emil Blonsky, who slowly starts to enjoy the power he gets and wants more, driving him to pursue the Hulk for a chance to become stronger. So now that we've got a basic summary out the way, let me tell you why this is one of my favourite MCU films. Number 1. For a start, the movie actually does a pretty good job at summing up the Hulk's origins without wasting too much time being a retread of the previous Hulk film that only came out a short time before this, being just a quick montage to demonstrate what happened and set up the backstory to three major characters in this movie. Considering Hulk only came out about 5 years before this and it might have still been fresh on people's minds, I honestly think this was the best way to do it. Number 2. Edward Norton does a good job at portraying what Bruce Banner is supposed to be like, at least in my opinion. I do like Mark Ruffalo as an actor, and his version does help to capture the caring, compassionate side of Bruce that was always at the centre of his character. But apart from that, I thought his Bruce Banner wasn't the best for someone who is supposed to be an action survivor who's been on the run from the government for a good chunk of his life. But Norton's version is exactly the sort of guy I'd expect Bruce to be like. A smart guy who tries his best to be helpful and kind to people, but who is also a gruff survivor who knows how to go on the run and endure a grueling, harsh life. Number 3. I really don't think the CGI in the film is that bad. When I look online, a lot of people complain that the CGI for the Hulk and Abomination is bad because it makes them look plasticky, and I understand the sentiment. It's no lie that the special effects for the Hulk in every movie appearance he's been in proceeds to get better and better, with more realistic hair and muscle textures. However, I think they do a good job at hiding the limitations of the CGI by embracing the savage, gritty nature of the film. Throughout the film, Hulk gets covered in water and sweat, making the oily sheen to him look more believable, and the use of other effects like dirt and ash help to add a layer of realism to the model. Also, I know this is subjective, everyone has their own opinion, but to me this is the best looking Hulk. Considering he's supposed to be Bruce's hidden rage and anger given physical form, this version of the Hulk does a much better job at conveying that than his later appearances, which I think made his proportions look a little too real. He looks more fleshy and meaty than muscly. It just makes him look like a big green muscle builder compared to an unstoppable muscle monster. Number 4. It helps to establish Hulk as an actual person. One of the things that annoyed me about his later appearances in the MCU is that whenever the Hulk character was allowed to show a bit of personality that wasn't a unstoppable rage monster, he was usually just depicted as a tantrum throwing child, which, at least to me, makes me struggle to take him seriously. The first 2 Avengers films, he was just a plot device that helped to push the story forward, and Thor Ragnarok, which was his last proper appearance, he was an annoying infant. But this film has him be a character, whether it's through his dialogue or how he interacts with others. It's a shame that they basically de-aged him in the other films, because a Hulk like this that is more mature was far more compelling to me than what we got later. Number 5. Again, despite this being a superhero film, it's also a monster film, and the visuals and tone of the film really try their best to emphasize this when they can. In fact, just how a lot of tension is created when you cannot see the monster in these type of movies, this movie is actually quite hesitant to show the Hulk on screen in the first third of the film. When the US government sends a task force to hunt him down in Brazil, it doesn't become some huge spectacle fight scene with martial arts or gunfights. The first part is just a chase of Bruce trying to get away from them, desperate to get away whilst also having to slow down to keep his heart rate down. The second half of the action scene, after he transforms into the Hulk, is more akin to a horror movie. The task force slowly stalks throughout the factory, everywhere covered by shadows as they get to the scene where Banner is being attacked by the other workers. Then one of the workers gets grabbed, vanishes into the shadows, before being thrown across the factory floor. As the task force moves in and sees the other workers fleeing, another gets yanked into the shadows, leaving behind only a shoe. As these soldiers try and tranquilize the monster, we see it silhouetted in shadows, the darts bouncing off harmlessly as he grabs 2 of the soldiers, and Ross can only hear in horror as his men scream as they die. As Blonsky tries to flank around, one of the dead bodies is thrown at him, causing the factory to start operating, lights flashing, bottles clanking, glass smashing, more distractions to make it harder to hunt the monster down. The group throw a flashbang, hoping to distort the monster, but all we hear is... The soldiers choose to reload their weapons and press on, only for a giant metal container to be thrown at them, killing them or at least severely crippling them. As the monster tries to leave, Blonsky, the last one alive, tries to shoot it, only for it to do nothing. Blonsky can only look on in horror as the Hulk growls at him in anger, as he then proceeds to pick up a forklift and throw it at him. Blonsky dives out the way to safety and then looks back in disbelief as the Hulk smashes its way out of the factory and escapes. Honestly, I wish we got more moments like this in the MCU. After he transforms for the first time, we get a little bit of this when it's just Hulk and Black Widow in the Avengers, but then it just becomes another superhero battle. I think the closest we've gotten to horror in the MCU after this is with Multiverse of Madness, which would be nice if it wasn't for the fact that everything else about that movie was dog shit. Number 6. I love these fight scenes. Just seeing the Hulk smash things is very enjoyable to me. And don't get me wrong, I enjoy seeing how he fights in the MCU fight scenes, but there's something about the sheer brutality and savagery of these scenes that I just love. They're also quite graphic. Don't get me wrong, they shy away from directly showing stuff on camera, but the way the camera works alongside the choreography helps you to understand just how messed up this film is. For instance, the first fight scene at the start when Hulk grabs 2 soldiers and slowly crushes their skulls until they die. The fight scene at the university where Hulk picks up a jeep, skewers several soldiers on a sharp piece of metal before crushing another soldier with the wreckage. The way that Blonsky ragdolls around the tree tells you that there's a lot more damage going on underneath that uniform. And just the way that Abomination rips innocent people apart, shattering their bodies and flinging them around like ragdolls is just terrifying. But honestly, I just really love the final fight scene, especially at the start of it. Just the way that Bruce flings to the ground, unable to transform as he smashes through the concrete. The tension builds up as Betty looks on in horror, and then the Hulk bursts through the ground, stares at Abomination, and then the music begins to swell up, releasing a angry, challenging roar. And then the fight happens and I just love it. Again, I'm already pretty biased because you can give me the most dogshit movie on the planet, and as long as it has two hulking titans beating the crap out of each other, I'll be less harsh on it. But you have to admit that even if you don't have this bias, that this is cool, right? Just watching these two unstoppable forces wailing on each other is just so satisfying. I really can't describe it, just watch it, and maybe you'll see what I mean. And finally, number 7. I genuinely believe that the musical soundtrack for this film is one of the most underappreciated musical scores the MCU has ever offered. Especially the main theme used for the Hulk, just listening to the violins and the cellos playing in the background in quick succession while the organ builds up in the background is one of the best themes for a superhero I can think of. Especially considering it just helps to emphasize the sheer gritty brutality of the Hulk. I'm not going to sit here and say it's one of the best pieces of music of all time, and it's still not even one of the best pieces of music in the MCU. There's plenty of other themes that I can think of better than it. But I think Craig Armstrong deserves a little more recognition for coming up with a piece that is as epic as it is terrifying. And that's just the main theme, there's plenty of other tracks that I think are brilliant as well. If I need to stress the negatives, besides the CGI being a bit dodgy, the only other main problem that I can think of is that they really don't do anything with Betty Ross. I think Liv Tyler did a good job with what she was given, but she mostly just serves as a crutch to help Bruce get to Mr. Blue, and that's about all she does. Apparently she might be coming back in Captain America Brave New World, and because she's been off screen for so long, she's probably going to be one of the only characters that isn't going to get character assassinated like the rest of the cast has. But yeah, hopefully we'll get to see more of her and she can actually be a proper character. But besides that, I enjoy the rest of this film, and I sincerely hope you give this film a rewatch, and hopefully you'll agree as well. Thank you for watching this video, lads and lasses. If you can leave a like and subscribe, that would greatly help out my channel. If you want to check out some of my other videos, that would also be a big help. And if you really want to help, consider my Patreon. You can also follow me on Twitter and Twitch, where I do some other bits and bobs. But yeah, hopefully you've had a great day, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.